Tomorrow at 12:01 a.m., a tariff law that hasn't been used in almost a century could take effect on Canadian goods. It's not the size of the tariff that makes this moment unusual. 50% tariffs have happened before. It's that this one might not care whether your product was supposed to be protected. On July 20th, 2026, President Trump signed 3 proclamations invoking Section 338 of the Tariff Act of 1930, a Depression-era provision that lets the president impose tariffs of up to 50% on a country accused of discriminating against U.S. commerce. It hadn't been used in roughly a century. The target, a list of more than 400 Canadian product categories, including automobiles, dairy, alcohol, cement, furniture, apparel, fishing rods, and hockey equipment. The tariffs are scheduled to take effect at 12:01 a.m. Wednesday, August 19, 2026, unless a last-minute agreement is reached. Here's the detail that separates this from earlier tariff fights. For the past several years, most Canada-US trade has been shielded by the US-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA. Goods that qualify under that agreement's rules of origin have generally been exempt from tariff escalation. This round is designed to apply even to USMCA qualifying goods, removing a layer of protection Canadian exporters have relied on since the deal was signed. That timing isn't a coincidence. Last month, Trump declined to extend USMCA for another 16 years as originally scheduled, instead putting the agreement through annual reviews. Combined with the Section 338 tariffs, it signals a period of sustained uncertainty for the trade relationship, not a single isolated dispute. According to the U.S. Trade Representative's Office, the new tariffs, if they take effect, would cover close to $20 billion of Canadian imports, about 5.2% of the $383 billion in goods the U.S. imported from Canada in 2025. Overall two-way trade between the countries was close to $900 billion last year. So this is a targeted strike on specific sectors, not the entire trading relationship, but it's aimed at politically sensitive industries in both countries. The White House has pointed to 3 specific grievances: Canada's 25% retaliatory tariff on US-made vehicles, near-total restrictions by Canadian provincial liquor boards on American alcohol sales, and dairy market access, where Canada has reportedly given the European Union more favorable terms than the US. Ottawa disputes the unreasonable and discriminatory characterization, but hasn't denied the underlying policies exist. The dispute is over whether they justify this response. On the Canadian side, Dominic LeBlanc, the minister responsible for Canada-US relations, and chief trade negotiator Janice Charette have met U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer multiple times in the weeks leading up to the deadline, including sessions over the final weekend. Prime Minister Mark Carney has repeatedly said Canada will not accept what he's called a bad deal, a position he's had to balance against pressure from industries facing real job losses if the tariffs land. Reporting indicates the emerging framework could involve Canada easing its retaliatory auto tariffs, provinces loosening restrictions on American alcohol sales, and changes to dairy quota structures, potentially paired with Canadian commitments on energy, defense, and critical minerals. None of this is confirmed as final. Talks were still described as unresolved as of the most recent reporting available. For Canadian producers, dairy farmers, auto parts makers, cement manufacturers, and even hockey equipment companies, a 50% tariff would sharply raise the cost of selling into their largest export market, with industry groups warning of job losses in already strained sectors. For American consumers and businesses, it would likely mean higher prices on Canadian-sourced goods, from wine to construction materials to vehicles, since tariffs are generally passed through the supply chain rather than absorbed entirely by exporters. 2 outcomes are possible by Wednesday: a negotiated framework that pauses or narrows the tariffs, or the tariffs taking effect as scheduled while talks continue in parallel. Officials on both sides have described the discussions as constructive, but constructive hasn't yet meant resolved. The broader question, how much of USMCA's protection survives this year's annual review process, will likely outlast whatever happens at midnight Wednesday. Whatever happens with this specific deadline, it's a preview of how US-Canada trade may work going forward. Less automatic protection under USMCA, more case-by-case negotiation, and recurring deadlines like this one. That's the part of the story that doesn't end Wednesday.